So today's May 27th, 2017. Last Saturday, I did a live stream. At noon today, I'll do another live stream. But I want to do. I'm also doing videos that I'm calling notes. A more random, casual way of putting my ideas together. So the idea is that, like, I've got ADD, and which influences executive function, which means that I have problems, um, setting up plans and sticking to them. So I'm using this live stream, weekly live streams, as a way to kind of discipline myself to stay on track with this project. Now the project, I'll just do a quick summary of what the project is. Okay, the project is in Norwalk, Connecticut. They're going to put in a retail mall, and I think that it makes sense within the constraints that exist. State budgets our Connecticut state budget is being reduced. There's less money coming to Norwalk. The mayor wants to set up a mall as a way of immediately getting construction work, eventually getting, I guess, retail jobs, as a way of generating tax revenues. Within the constraints of how things are, it makes sense. I think that if things were done differently, we could have done better than a retail mall. One of the problems with the retail mall is that a lot of retail outlets are going online. Chains are going out of business, and that trend probably will continue. So, the bottom line being, a retail mall might not have been the best plan for urban development in Norwalk, Connecticut. So my sense is that there would have been a better alternative, and that which would be a multi-use complex. I can imagine looking at successful urban development projects across the country. A lot of them have been successful with waterfront development, with tourism. So there's options besides going with almost exclusively retail. There was a plan to put a hotel on top of the mall, but that fell by the wayside. But instead of pushing, for example, to either change that, it's too late to change that. It's in the works already. It's going to be constructed, or to suggest that it be scrapped, leveled, and another alternative put in. I can imagine a process of transforming it over time to a multi-use complex. And in order to do that, a design would have to be made for not only for what it would look like in the end, but for the transition process. As some of these outlets remain unrented, or as some of them go out of business, instead of replacing them with other retail outlets, to begin to layer in alternative uses for that space. So to do that, though, there would have to be a plan, and to come up with a plan, there would have to be a team, and so my idea for this project is to gather a team. But in order to gather a team, I I think that I want to develop a certain kind of pitch. So I'm going to call a pitch that I have in mind the pitch, and I really haven't developed it except that it'll be different from things like the elevator pitch. It'll be more geared towards uh, the interest, not only. So I imagine 7 people on this team, starting with me and ending with Mayor Rilling. Now, so but and I imagine that as I make the pitch down the line, then 2 of us will make the pitch to the third person, and so on, down to 6 of us making the pitch to Mayor Rilling. Um, and I imagine these pitches being geared towards each of the persons. It's like hopefully all of them will have an interest in helping the residents of Norwalk, Connecticut by having a multi-use complex uh, as an urban development project. Um, but this also, this is like this complex. Like I see it facing in 2 directions. Okay, one direction is for the benefit of the residents of Norwalk. Okay, so this is like practical. Okay, the practical benefit is to improve the lives of the Norwalks of the residents of Norwalk, Connecticut. But the other purpose of this of designing this, going through this process, is to develop a model. Now, a model not only of let's say I call this process of transformation a morph. It morphs instead of instead of tearing one thing down and building another on the space to gradually morph into a whole different kind of thing. It would I can imagine including retail, but also being oriented towards tourism and also being oriented towards social services for the residents of Norwalk. For example, if we have a problem in Norwalk with high dropout rates among students in lower SES categories, social economic status categories, then I can imagine part of this complex being devoted to space for kids to get extra help. There's a number of like for-profit tutoring programs. There's also social service mentoring programs. There's any number of ways that help to the students of Norwalk could be built into this multi-use complex. And I can imagine, other functions being built into this. I can imagine it being a combination of sectors. I can imagine a private sector component that would generate revenues and jobs, a public sector component, maybe actually some government agencies could be located in here to have closer access to all the things that are happening, and the social services sector, the social sector, which would include social services, but other stuff too. I can imagine them all being in close proximity, working together to come up with ways of improving the lives of the residents of Norwalk, especially the kids as they grow up, to make sure they get good health care, good housing, good education, and eventually good jobs, affordable housing, uh, just a functioning. I can imagine this being like the core of a functioning city, a well-functioning city, where all of our problems are dealt with adequately, and every single resident of Norwalk is living a good life. So that's the model part of it. That's the model part of it. Well, that's the practical and the model part of it. But if we could succeed with something like that on a practical basis, then we would have a model that other cities could use. Okay. So the idea is that to put together a team to design not only the multi-use complex, but also the transition process, and to develop a series of pitches. Now, the first pitch I was going to put together, I imagine putting together a pitch video. In these notes, I'll develop I'll develop ideas, but in the end, I'll put together more finished videos to take to do the pitches. But the first one is for me. I have to persuade myself that this project is worth the time and effort I would put into it, within the context of what I'm trying to do overall, what I've been trying to do for the last half a century. I know it sounds grandiose and naive, but I used to call this saving the world. Nobody wants to hear that anymore. But to me, that's still what this is about. So, okay. So when I do my live stream today, I'll probably refer back to this. What I wanted to do was start working on a theory of change. And I may get to that. I don't know. But I want to say something else. I've got these YouTube videos. I can only upload 15-minute segments to Facebook. So it looks like I've got about 3